restart that. And so for any students that may have missed a class or maybe part of the class, you can always go back and watch the recordings. And then also when we go over course content, like if you wanted to go back and rewatch them, that, that's another reason, a good reason for this recordings. Let me make this a little bit bigger. Okay, so this is INU 118, section 7. Topics in INU studies, Qulliq seal oil lamp carving. So we will be meeting only on Zoom on Saturdays. So we have March 9, March 16, March 23, March 30 from 1 to 3. It is a 1-credit class. I have my email listed here and the Zoom link as well. So for the course description, students will learn how to hand carve their own Qulliq seal oil lamp, then learn to light it. If you do look in the course catalog for the college, we don't have this course listed for Qulliq carving in the catalog because the INU 118, the number, it's a topics in, so that means there could really be any type of INU studies topic taught. Like for example, we've had summer camps with this course number, beading, traditional plants classes, summer camps, mukluk making, so all sorts of different classes with this topic number. So just letting you guys be aware. But if you do look in the catalog course description, it is an exploration of various INU studies topics. Some topics include, but are not limited to, crimping dried sealskin to make mukluk soles, sewing mukluks to the soles, beading, learning how to make kupuk, which is the decorative trim on parkas or mukluks or whatever garments, how to take tendons from caribou legs, dry, then split and braid them to make thread, learning how to construct various frames, such as making a kayak, unet, or umak, which are boats, and then a sled. Demonstrate how the skins for the cover of the kayak or umak are sewn. So those are just some things that have been done in the past. So could really be any type of INU studies topic. But for this course, we are specifically focusing on Qulliq carving. Program outcomes addressed by this course: be able to develop objects of art in the INU style and demonstrate increased understanding of the relationship of INU culture to the land, sea, and animals. Course objectives: at the end of this carving course, students will have a basic understanding of how to carve by hand, have an understanding how to make a custom-made Qulliq seal oil lamp, so you will design your own, learn the INU names of implements, and learn how to light your own Qulliq, your seal oil lamp. Your grade distribution will be divided between attendance, which is 25% of your grade, completion of project, which is the biggest part of your grade, 50%, submitting a picture of your finished Qulliq, 10%. So you could either, email it to me or submit it onto my campus, whichever is easier for you. Find oil, atqun, and pullikhrat, which I will go over today on what each of those are, and each of those are 5%. Here is a grading scale. So we only have 4 class sessions. So if you do miss a day, you will miss quite a bit. I know we do have recordings, but that does not make up for an attendance day. So make sure you try to attend each of the days. It's a short class, so you can fall behind pretty quickly and also bring your grade down. But if something does come up and you're unable to come to class, please just, let me know, have, communication with me, and please watch the recording on your own time and make sure you get caught up in the class and whatever we've done that day. So please note that watching the class recording will not make up your attendance points. So being here is like the biggest part of getting that your portion of the grade. Completion of project is 50% of your grade. If you do need an extension, please just email me and we can get that set up. Communication is key, so please just let me know if you need an extension. So once you complete the project, submit a picture of your completed Qulliq onto my campus, or like I said, you can email it to me. For each of these three, find oil, atqun, and palikhrat, I have a PowerPoint presentation and I will cover in more detail what those are. But finding oil is 5% of your grade. And each of you will have to find an oil to use for the fuel for the Qulliq. And, you know, when you have a Qulliq, the oil is the fuel source. And so when we have a dried material, it could be cotton, it could be paper towel, whatever safe dried material, we use kind of like the wick. And so when the wick is on, the fuel source will keep the flame on. So it could be a traditional type of oil, maybe mesagak, which is rendered oil. It could be, you know, from seals. It could be from the bullhead whale, beluga whale, you know, anything. But if you don't have access to that, then you're more than welcome to use oil, any type of oil from the store, such as coconut oil, vegetable, Wesson olive oil, any type of oil that, you know, you like the smell of. If I don't have access to like seal oil, that is another noise that my baby will make, so I apologize for that. It's a good thing. Right, baby? But my favorite that I like to use if I don't have access to traditional oil is the coconut oil. It has like a nice scent to it. The oil that I don't really like is vegetable, just because, you know, when you're cooking on a pan and sometimes it gets like sticky and it's hard to come off. It'll do the same thing to your Qulliq. So I really like coconut because it wipes off really nicely and you can just any excess oil, you can just rub it on your finished Qulliq. An atqun is 5% of your grade. And so it's your responsibility to go out and find an atqun, which is an implement used to tend to the flame. And it's so that you don't burn yourself. And when you have the dried material on for your wick, you use this implement to move the wick around if needed, to help the flame get higher, to let the flame get smaller, to turn off the flame. So that is an atkhun, and it could be a tutu, a caribou antler. It could be like the smaller ones. It could be wood, a willow twig, bone. And then if you don't have access to that, then it could be something as simple as a chopstick, something that you can find in your kitchen, or maybe if you go to a restaurant and, you know, sometimes you could take those, the wooden ones. So it could really be anything. Don't use ivory, because once ivory touches the flame and the heat, it'll start to crack and ruin the ivory piece, and you don't want to ruin a nice piece of ivory. So any of those will work. And if you look at your little stone that I had sent, or that you have, like you don't want such, like if you find an antler, you don't want such a huge antler. Wow, babe. You don't want such a big antler, so something small is perfect. Find palikhrak, which is 5%, and palikhrak is a dried material used as the wick for the Qulliq. And in the summertime, it could be something that you pick, such as cotton from the land, or if you're maybe in the city where there's trees, or a village where there's trees, and sometimes there's that cotton that flies off, you know, you could use that. Moss was another one. And if you don't have any of that, it could be like paper towel or any other safe dried material. Like you don't want to use anything with plastic because, once you burn it, then you have fumes and it's just not safe for you to breathe in. So I noticed that the paper towel, not the industrial kind, like, at workplaces where the paper towel comes out of what are those, the hand motion things from the bathroom. Like I don't like that kind because they burn so quickly. But the kind of paper towel that you get from the store, like that one is like perfect. I really like that one. And so you don't need much for the class, just enough when we get to lighting that you get to practice lighting it. I saw there was something in the chat. Okay. Yeah, I heard the cotton balls from the store might be good. But also in your package, I did add some cotton from the land. Some of them have stems, so I left those stems because I wanted you guys to kind of get a feel of, part of the process of taking the cotton off of the stem. So you could definitely use that too, but as a second material, you can try also the cotton balls from the store. I've never personally used those kind, so I don't know how they work, but I'm all about experimenting and trying new things. And, that could be one thing that you can try and then share with the class that, if you liked it or you didn't like it. So yeah, I would recommend you try it. Okay, we'll talk more about each of these things during the class, but if you do have any questions, feel free to ask questions or use the chat feature. Yeah, I guess are there any other questions before I move forward? Mhm. Mhm. Okay, I hear no questions. I don't see anything in the chat. So late work policy, if you need an extension for the project or any assignment, just let me know. Otherwise, any work turned in late will result in a 10% deduction of overall grade for that specific assignment if there's no communication with me. Email policy, I did try to include both your personal emails that you included in my or sorry, that is in Empower. And then I also included your Ilisalovik email, but moving forward, make sure you use your Ilisalovik email address for communication with the college and myself. For the plagiarism policy, students with disabilities, access and inclusion, I'm just going to leave those really open for each of you to read on your own. You have the syllabus on my campus and I also emailed it, and the Title IX statement. I'm just going to go past these. So the course schedule, it's on the last page of the syllabus, and this is a really, really important part of what we're going to be doing this month. And it's really open, and each of you will kind of go at your own pace. And yeah, so for, I guess, like an overview of what we will be doing is you will choose the shape of what you want your Qulliq to be. And I mentioned I have a PowerPoint presentation. I'm going to share that here after we go over this and then talk about some of the different shapes and show some different Qulliq. You'll also choose where your wick ledge will go. And depending on your shape, you will use a saw to take off the edges. Use a coarse rasp to take off most of the material to make your shape, make the bowl. Use a less coarse rasp. Sand from coarser grit to finer grit. Oil for smooth finish. Bind utpun, pilichrak in oil, and light Qulliq using materials. Okay, so like I said, each of you will definitely be at your own pace but we'll try to meet each other on your progress and make sure that each of you do the same things until like the next class. So for the assignments, you will show that you found your Qulliq and your project is due by the 30th, so that's the last class. And then also your picture submission is also due by the last class. And oops, that is the last part of the syllabus. Are there any questions before I share the PowerPoint presentation? All right, so let me stop sharing here and open up the PowerPoint presentation. Can you see that okay? Okay, see a thumbs up.
Yeah.
Awesome. So this is just a one sample Qulliq. So as you see pictures of like the completed Qulliq, just take note of one that you really like and one that you want to do. But this is a really common shape, is like the half moon. And I'm really excited to see how each of your stones turn out because each of them are unique and different in color. I think all of the ones that each of you have came from like the same order of soapstone. So in the past class, like last semester, some students' stones turned out to be kind of like the Northern Lights, where it's like black with like really bright green streaks. So each of yours will be unique and different. So I'm really excited to see like the final outcome. But there are different names for the lamps. Qulliq is one of the common ones that we hear like people talk about. Qulliq, when I say Qulliq, the spelling is right here. It just means like it's a plural form for Qulliq. So Qulliq is like one, Qulliq is the plural. Nunaq is another one, but that one just refers to light. Like you can call the lights on the ceiling Nunaq because that's the light. Another one is Tuniqtuq, and that one is actually an Inupiaq name that you hear. I think we have a coworker at the college whose Inupiaq name is Tuniqtuq. Stone lamps, some people call them stone lamps, and that's Nanich Uyagaganik, which I mean you can say stone lamps, but like the translation is like light from the rocks, or similar to that. Steel oil lamp is a common one that I call because that's what I grew up with. Whale oil lamp is another one, blubber lamp, and then also soapstone lamp. So there's all sorts of names that refer to the Qulliq or these lamps that our people have used for generations. So really awesome, really, really interesting to know about, all of the different names. And I think there's one more name that I think it's in one of the stories I'll cover this semester, but I can't remember it off the top of my head. So the Qulliq, they are really important, and long ago they were used for many different things, and it was a huge part of Inuit lifestyle. They provided light. So if you just like kind of go back in time and think about the time when our people lived in sod houses, and it's like a sod house is like a home on the land under the tundra. The sod is like the blocks of tundra on top of the structure. Inside of the structure had either whalebones, depending on where the people lived. It could be like whalebone, all like whale bones, the jaws of the whale, all over the structure of the sod home. And then in other areas, it was also driftwood or could be like an Ukhtuvik Pass area where, they don't have, they're not near the ocean. So they had to use the trees from their area. So depending on where the people live, they use what they had. And so as you're thinking of the Qulliq, just kind of bring yourself back in time and think of it in that way. There was no electricity, so they had to use the Qulliq for light inside of their sod home. And they didn't have just one Qulliq, they had multiple. And I'll go over a story later on or another class talking about that. Also heat. So these are very efficient. And when I first got into making the Qulliq and started lighting them for different events, I had one in my office, and my office, it's not really big, but it's not too small. And I think it was during COVID time, and I had it lit in my office for the whole duration of the INU Fine Arts Festival, which was on Zoom due to COVID. And it was, I think, about 2 hours or so. And by the end of the festival, I was like literally sweating bullets. It was so hot just from the tiny Qulliq. In this picture, it was probably like this big. But it's really, even that one little one, it made a lot of heat. And, just thinking of, again, going back in time, it kept a whole sod home warm. And another interesting thing is that the sod homes were designed in a way to keep the heat inside. And if you ever hear stories or read stories of the past, it was so hot in the sod homes. A lot of the men, they have thick parkas, and once they go inside, they would take their parkas off, and, they wouldn't have shirts on because it's so hot in there. Also, the Qulliq were used for cooking needs and heating up broth and tea and things like that. Sorry, I'm on the chat. All right, so I see a hand raised. Anne-Marie?
Yeah. So would there like be a wire rack or something you would put over the top if you were going to like warm up water for tea or something? Or how exactly would they do that?
Yeah, they would have probably not a wire, but they would hang up their pots or whatever they're using above the Qulliq. So it wouldn't be in the Qulliq, but it would be above it. And I have some old pictures that I'll share in this presentation to kind of show you like how some people did it. Some of them are older pictures and some of them are kind of newer. So they would definitely have certain, like, I don't want to say a structure, but a method that worked. And in one of the classes that we had, or a couple of them, we got from the stove top. I grabbed some of the racks from on top. I think they're stone or something, but I put some of the square soapstone blocks underneath, and then I put from the oven, the stove top, I put those racks on top, and then we placed a bunch of the Qulliq that were done by students underneath, and then we had the pot on top. And we were just kind of experimenting and see how long it would take. If it was near the flame, obviously it went by faster to heat up. But when we had it a little bit higher, like maybe 2 inches higher, it took a long time to heat heat up the pot of water for tea. So closer to the flame is best. So they're normally made, the Qulliq are made from a single piece of stone. Soapstone is one of the common ones that people use, but they were also formed out of clay. So I know Rachel talked about from her region, she heard of her people using clay. And so clay was also used in the North Slope, and many people stopped using the clay because they never lasted as long as the stone. And also Qulliq were small or large depending on its use or purpose. So also thinking of, go back into time and think of hunters who didn't have snow machines, who didn't have boats, like the boats with motors and, quick travel. They had an umaq or a kayak. A kayak is a one-person skin boat, and an umaq is like an 8-person skin boat. And they would use dog sled teams. And if you imagine like our people just going out hunting, it could be days, it could be weeks while they're gone trying to find, fish or caribou, go out and get seals. It would take a while. So they would have to set up temporary tents where they would have a travel size qulliq, which is a smaller one, just enough to keep their tent warm, keep them warm, and allow them to be able to survive the cold Arctic conditions. And then in the sod home, which is a more like permanent structure, there would be bigger, like way bigger ones. Like a travel one could be like ranging from, hold on, put her head down. Like this could be a travel size, like the stone that you guys have. And then the big ones I've seen like this size and even bigger, like this size. So if you could see my hands. So the size depended on its use or purpose. Soapstone is very common in like Canada. And as I was reading this book, it's called Qulliq, and Qulliq is one of the old books that our elders, when they came together around the time of the self-determination movement, and they were telling the stories from their perspective and getting it written down. And this was like end of the 70s, beginning 80s. And the elders from all of the North Slope villages and also beyond. I think there's even stories from like the Kotzebue unknown region, but these elders, they came together, and they're the age of my like great grandmother, if you can put that into perspective. And they came and talked about like creation stories and how life used to be, and also really interestingly enough how our people had access to the Qulliq, because if you're in Utqarvik, we don't have the stones needed to use for a Qulliq. And in some of the old stories, they talked about the people that live in the Unuktuvik Pass region, which is in the Brooks Range. The people that lived there and the people that lived in Utqarvik, they would have a meeting area where they would barter and trade items, goods, food, and even Qulliq. So those that live in Unuktuvik Pass, they in the mountains have access to the stones used for the Qulliq. And in the book Qulliq, and let me write it in the chat, Qulliq and Qulliq. If you ever get the chance to purchase it, I would highly recommend it. They talk about they would meet the people of Utqarvik at a place called Niralek, and it is near the village of Nuqsit, and it's like a halfway point where they would meet. The people from Anaktuba Pass would bring caribou, they would bring stones for the Qulliq, whatever items that they were bountiful of, that Qulliq was not bountiful of, and whatever Qulliq was bountiful of, which would be blubber from the bowhead whales, it would be seal oil, the different sea mammals that we get on the coast. And it would be a huge bartering time. And this bartering was so important for survival, because if they didn't, that could also mean, life or death, and if they survived that winter or not. And seal oil was so important because it lit the lamps for fuel. And in Unuktuba Pass, that would be so important. And if they ran out of that seal oil, then they would use what they have in their region, which could be the kaunak, the fat from the caribou, or other types of plant material. Okay, let me go to the next slide. So Qulliq then and today, much different. So I talked about how it was so needed for survival. Today, we don't need it for survival because obviously we live in houses, we have electricity, we have the light, we have the heat in our homes, we have stoves, and we have it so easy to just be warm and to be able to see whenever we want. And so today we use it more for cultural survival. So it could be used just like how it was used during the Elisa Board of Trustees meetings, where it's used to set the tone of the meeting, used to acknowledge our elders, our ancestors, just thanking our elders for everything that they've done and taught us, and, using it in that way. I see in the chat, would the caribou fat need to be oil, or you can definitely use the lard style, because once you add it to the heat, it will melt. We were testing it out with even just non-rendered blubber, like seal blubber and whale blubber, and it also works. But yeah, I haven't personally tried it with the caribou fat, but it would be really cool to test that out. I'm going to pause and mute myself, so I'll be right back. Okay, sorry about that. I had to change diaper, but um in for experimentation, we were trying to see what it would be like with, using the blubber, and then also yeah, we tried the whale blubber because we have lots of it here, or in Qulliq, and we used it like non-pounded. You know how there's like that pounding tool, like a meat tenderizer? You could use that to help break down some of the fibers and get, more of the oil out. But we tried it without doing that. And for those of you that have rendered oil before, when the blubber is rendering, not all of it turns to oil. There's like this fiber in the middle of the blubber that's kind of left, and we call that ukhrugak, and that turned like crispy, kind of like bacon when we were trying it that way. But it would be interesting to try the caribou fat, but at the same time, you know, when you look at your resources, it's like, okay, I have more blubber and I would like to use the caribou fat for like, you know, akatok, you know, thinking of it in that way. So it's like you want to use the resources that you're more bountiful in, but it would be interesting to just to see how it would turn out. For today, also the ones that people create are more of like they're the smaller ones, like the stones that each of you have, like the travel size. I haven't seen anybody today make or find the big stones. In the Qulliq book, Elijah Kukinya, who has already passed away, but in the book he talked about his wife was her wife's or his wife's parents were buried on a mountain where you find the Qulliq stones. And you know, when I had gone to Anuktivik Pass a couple years ago, I would ask some of the people there, and I was like, "Do you know where Elijah Kukinya's wife's parents were buried?" And nobody could tell me. That I talked to anyway. But it would be really interesting to find those graves and um, see if we could find any of the stones. But when I had gone to the museum over there, I was talking with Taller. I'm trying to remember her first name, but she had recently passed away, and I had asked her about it because she, you know, she worked at the museum and the Simon Panek Museum, and she told me you can find the rocks, certain rocks, not the ones that I'm talking about, but different ones, um, in the river system near their area. They have one that I'll show a picture of here shortly. They have a limestone Qulliq in their museum. And I asked her about that one specifically. And she said she hasn't found any before, but she said she always sees those in the river system. So it would be awesome to get to find one from there. Okay, next slide. So this is a sign, INU Carving, and it's right by the Mario's restaurant, what used to be Arctic Pizza. And if you ever had taken the time to read it, you know, it's a nice piece of history, but it says Parla Rifsi, welcome to the ancient village of Ukbervik. So our place has like two different names. We have Ukbervik and we have Utgervik. And this area where the sign is, it's the area of Ukbervik. And it's like the place where we hunt snowy owls. Whoops. And they have this nice sign here. And the next slide, let me just go to the next slide. It's like it shows like a little diagram or a picture of a sod home of what it looks like. And behind the sign are old caved in sod homes that are um like grass is growing on them, and you can tell that they were sod homes because of the way like it's a big mound with a hole in the middle. But they're all, what's the word, caved in. Yeah, they're all caved in. But I really like the pictures just to show, you know, what a sod home could have looked like. And they would have these drying racks where they would keep food and also keep their gear and implements above ground, because obviously we live in a place where there's lots of snow. So I wanted to read this part, and it's the one on the right-hand side, and it's home building 2,000 years ago. Our heritage comes from our culture's ingenious use of the natural resources. The mounds before you are the 2,000-year-old remains of our ancestors' semi-underground sod homes. The thick earthen walls held in the heat from the whale oil lamps while keeping out the bitter Arctic winds. Okay, hold on 1 second. Okay, sorry about that. A sunken like tunnel-like entrance was engineered to keep cold air from entering the warm interior living space, and the roof was supported with the long jawbones of the bowhead. I wanted to share this because they use the term whale oil lamps. So in a place where whale is very plentiful, so it would make sense to call it whale oil lamps. And another thing, while we're talking about sod homes, that's really interesting is that our, let me go back, let's see, to this one. So there's this entryway right here. And there's like the bigger living area right here. So this part, it's the Qulliq. And if you're ever in Qulliq, or sometimes some of the Anchorage buildings have it, but it's a Qulliq where it's an entryway before you enter the building. And this helps to ensure that the building stays warmer. And so our buildings, our modern houses were built based on our traditional sod homes where we have that entryway before you enter the house. So just wanted to point that out. Okay, so this is a Qulliq from Nuvuk, and Nuvuk is Point Barrow. And here is a fairly big stone. And this looks like a stone that would have been from like Unuktuvik Pass. Like you can tell it's not soapstone, but a different type of stone. And they have these stands because they get really hot. They're like a literal stove. So when you do get to light yours, you have to be very careful because they are really hot. And this one is a nice looking shape. It's kind of looks like it's not really a half moon, but it has like the curve on one end. You could see the flame. And she has an utkun right here. So remember, an utkun is an implement. So this one kind of looks like a stick or an antler. This is the same picture, and this was at the museum. I really appreciate our local museum in Qulliq, the Inupiat Heritage Center, because they have a lot of really amazing resources and just artifacts and all sorts of things that they display there. And I don't know if this one is, no, I don't think it's the same one because this one we could see it has a wick ledge and this one's a little bit different. So one thing I want you guys to look at is as you're looking at the different pictures that I will share of the Qulliq, is if there's a wick ledge where it's like a bump where you would put your dried material. So on here, I don't see one, but you could see like there's a flat area right here, and this is where they would, and the burnt area where they would have the flame. This one, I've been really examining this one, and after reading some information about the Qulliq and doing some research, this one, it kind of looks like it's a triangular piece of stone that probably would have been from like Unuktuvik Pass maybe. But then there's wood embedded in here. And on the outside is probably clay that they kind of molded around it so that it could hold the oil, is kind of what I'm guessing. the regular style of the Qulliq, well, regular, but like this one where it's just stone. You don't have clay, you don't have wood, like this triangular one. It's like a bowl, obviously to hold the oil. On some of them, you'll have a wick ledge where it will hold the flame so that it's above the oil. If your plant material, if your flame is just like drowning in oil, it will turn out very quickly. So as you are designing yours, you have to keep that in mind. Bless you. Here's another, just a top view. So this is, where the flame would go. If you have like, let's say a little bit of oil, your flame could go down here. But if you have like, if you fill it with a lot of oil, then you would have to go up so that your flame is not in the oil drowning. And I really like this. It's a stand to put the Qulliq on. So this one stand is for this big stone. And I love it because it looks like it's made of driftwood, and you just place your Qulliq right on top. And I've seen it during, I think it's the next, let me check. Yeah. So this was during the 2019 INU language conference. It was like in the paper, the newspaper, Arctic Sounder, and they used it to begin the language conference. And you can see their flame is not up here because they don't have much oil. Well, this is still a lot of oil, but depending on how much oil you have, you can bring your flame down with your wick ledge. So the same Qulliq, the real big stone, during the Inupiat History, Language, and Culture IHLC conference on the left, where I think this is James Narak, I believe. He's lighting it to begin the IHLC conference, Elders and Youth Conference. And then on the right is during Qulliq, which is our messenger feast. And there's elders from Qulliq Pass. I can't remember what year this was, but the way that we celebrate Qulliq, like the first day, each village typically has a dance group that comes, and it's just like a time to celebrate, to dance, to feast, to be together, to give gifts. And on the first day, each of the dance groups, they identify one runner from their village to race. And back then, they would race, not really race, but back then it was definitely much different. Today, they just run down the road, and whoever wins the race, their village, their dance group, will have the honor to light the Qulliq to begin Qulliq. And this year, I can't remember which year, but on Qulliq Pass, one of our past Elisa students, Tungana, Aruk, I believe, he won the race. And so an elder from his village had the honor to light the Qulliq in front of everybody, and their group had the honor to perform first. And so that's an example of how it's used today. And they do that every Qulliq now. And it's such a beautiful way to begin Qulliq and to honor the dance groups and the elders. And they're kind of like, what's the word? Oh my gosh. Like royalty throughout the whole Qulliq. These are just more like close-ups of that triangular stone with what I believe is like clay and wood in there. So just some pictures of that. This is some pictures from the ethnological results of the Point Barrow expedition. So if you ever get the chance to purchase that, I would highly recommend it. They have amazing drawings of artifacts, and at the time were just, real life, like that's what they used. And nowadays we call them artifacts, but just to give you an idea of some of the shapes. And like this one has no wick ledge. This one has a wick ledge that goes from one end to the other. These ones don't. So just some ideas for you. If you like the shape of one, keep that in mind. This one, I believe, looks like the Heritage Center in Qulliq, but I found this picture on Google and it looks like a clay Qulliq, where it's a big Qulliq. This is pretty big, made from clay. And you can tell that it's clay because it's light gray. Once you add the oil, it turns like dark gray. This one is at the Tukia Point Hope School. And I really love how they have a bunch of artifacts. They're the oldest village in Alaska. And they have a ton of amazing artifacts right at the front of their school, like when you enter. And this is one of a Qulliq that was displayed in their display case. And it kind of looks like stone, but it also looks like clay. Like you can kind of tell, like if you look at this part. I mentioned earlier about the Inuktitut Pass Museum and how they had a lamp displayed there. And this one is a limestone. Oh yeah, this is the other name. So Nunavut is another term for the lamp. And as you're looking at this limestone, you can see the dark part where the flame was. There's no wick ledge, but they had it up here. And so one of my goals in life is to find a stone like this in Inuktitut Pass, or even like one of the other ones, the real ones. This one is my Amau. So my Amau Nayuk, who I'm named after, and she had this is a really big one. Like if you can just, like if you compare it to the fireplace and everything, this is really big. One of my cousins sent me the picture and it was fairly good, but there was an earthquake, I think, within the last 5 years, and it ended up falling or something, and it ended up getting damaged. But just to think of how old this one is and just how big, and probably used for so many different things. There are some old stories about the importance of the Qulliq, and there would be people traveling with these really big heavy stones. They didn't want to leave them ever, so they would travel with them, and they would put them on their back and just like tie it on their back and travel with it because they didn't want to leave it behind. This one, there was a man recently in Qulliq in Wainwright. I got this picture off of Facebook, but he found it while beachcombing after a big fall storm, and you can tell how happy he is. I think his last name is Nashukbuk, but man, what an incredible find. You can tell it's stone, and it was probably also from the mountains. Beautiful piece, all in one, like it's not even broken or messed up, like it's still in perfect condition. So this is a half moon shape. These ones are from Google, and sometimes they would be made in shapes of nirurti, which are animals. So this one is like a seal. And the other one has like a triangular shape too. These ones, just really interesting. Like this one looks kind of like a whale tail, in my opinion. This one kind of resembles the mountains to me. I don't know the story of it, but it reminds me of the Qulliq box drum how they have like the mountain shape on top. I really like the atkun on the top two pictures. Like the one on the left kind of looks like an antler. This one kind of looks like soapstone. But the one on the top right has a tiny wick ledge where you would have a tiny, well, I guess it looks like it goes all the way over here, but it doesn't like reach end to end. So it would have a pretty good flame. Yeah. This one has two curved ones. Oh yeah. And this one in the back, it kind of has, you can see there's spaces between each of the wick ledges. And just imagining like, if you want a lot of heat, you would, have flames on all of these. And if you don't want it too hot, then you would only probably have a couple lit or something. But these two are travel size. This one's much bigger. A lot of different shapes. When I was in Marjorie Quinnock Tabone's class, she talked about how when she got to visit the archives and got to see actual Qulliq, like in the museum, like in the back where they don't display them. She talked about how she saw some of these, and there's this one where it's like stacked on top of another one. And she was saying that, when you have one lit, like this one doesn't have a wick ledge. So if you have your flame right here, sometimes the oil will leak. And so this one on the bottom would catch the oil, whatever that is leaking. And then I was also thinking, if this one is on the top one and it's hot, then if you have like blubber on the bottom one, then maybe it would render or, begin to render so that it would be ready to move up here. Just some of the things that I thought, but a good way to catch the oil, so that you don't waste, if you think of it in a survival sense. Here are more Nilaruti animals. This one is a seal. So if you fill it with oil, it looks like it's in the water. And then this one's a bowhead whale or some type of whale. And same thing, you fill it with oil and it looks like it's in the water and the flame is right here. You could tell by the burnt area. Other shapes, there's the half moon. And I don't know what to call this one, but it has a tiny wick ledge right here. I like this shape right here. I tried to replicate this one, but this one, it doesn't have a wick ledge. So if you examine this picture, it has the flame on the end, but then look down here on the cardboard. You can see that the oil is leaking. So as you are thinking of yours on how you want to design yours, if you do this without a wick ledge, then you will have to make sure you do something about the cleanup. You're going to have oil leak around, and if you don't have a wick ledge. So I would highly recommend you add a wick ledge to yours. But this is so pretty. I love this photo. Like from the old days, but not too old, because you could see that there's clocks and tin cans and probably sugar and things of that nature. But you could see in this one, the shape, look at the shape, kind of like an eye shape. And there's actual blubber in there. So it'll, render once it's next to the flame. I like this picture here, just so you could see the shape of it. and also the stand. In last semester for the class that we had, I had gone beach combing and I picked up a bunch of bowhead whale vertebrae. And so each student got to have one of those for their stand. So if you're ever on the beach, you can find one, or you can use that for the stand, just something from the beach. If you don't have anything like that, you could use cardboard or maybe build a wooden stand of driftwood, or if you have any type of wood laying around. You don't want your Qulliq on the table by itself. It has to be on top of something. Okay, next slide. Okay, so this is the Anne-Marie, when you mentioned how they hang it, or when it comes to cooking. So she has a really big one here. Oops. And you could see she has her pot. This is like a modern picture, but she has it hanging on rope so that she can cook or make tea or broth. Let's see. Some more pictures, different shapes. Mhm. Here's another structure where they have wood and then they hang it from the middle of the wood. This one in a Apuyak, a snow house. This one has 2 wick ledge. Yeah, it definitely is ingenious. Oops. Next slide. More shapes. Oh, I really like this one. It's the Alaskan Harvesters Facebook page. And there's a man by the name of Michael Sholdis. He said, my wife, Tornok, collects Arctic cotton, which she prepares for use in a Qulliq soapstone lamp as wick material. We burn it often at the cabin and house for its warmth and beauty. So she went and gathered a ton of Arctic cotton and she's like preparing it here. And you could see her setup. She has like some kind of block inside of her Qulliq where she puts her pot right on top. So if you look at this picture, there's like wood where the pot would sit on, and then a block inside the Qulliq so that it doesn't tip over. So that one is really cool. And plus she has, I don't know, stone, maybe some kind of stone under it so that it catches any oil, because she does add her the whole end of this part is just a whole flame. Just other pictures here. So soapstone is really easy to carve. It scratches very easy too. So when you're done with yours, just be careful. You can add some designs at the end. Like on this one, I added some tattoo designs. When I went down the coast, I believe this was like 3 summers ago, maybe 2 summers. We went maybe 15, 20 miles or so down the coast, and there's huge rocks just all over, and you can find different shapes. There are some with like perfect holes in the middle. I had found one with a bowl, and so I decided to try and light it just, to test it out. And I forgot how long I kept it on lit, but it didn't break. So I was happy about that. So I have that one. I think I have it in the classroom. But also down the coast, you can find clay. And I had learned from Louisa Riley Kanak, who lives in Onoktuvuk Pass. And when I had gone to learn from her about caribou skin mask, she also talked about the clay that when she would visit Utkarvik, she would go and gather clay. And she would make like pottery type stuff to put like her flowers in. And so I started collecting some and learning how to process it. So it was a lot of fun to test out and try to shape with our hands. There is this other book. I'm going to read from it, not this class, but during another class. And it's called Tagara Eskimos and Their Environment. And it's by Barrett Ernestine Foote. And she had lived in Point Hope for a number of years, I think in the 40s, I believe. And at that time, a lot of people were, already in like the modern way of life, but also still holding on to like a lot of traditional way of life. And she had the opportunity to live in Point Hope during a time when they used the clay Qulliq. And so she had learned about how they would make it, what they would add and mix into it, because it's not just clay. They would add really fine sand, ptarmigan feathers, and also seal blood into the clay. They wouldn't fire it. So, you know how like a lot of people that make pottery, they fire their clay so that it becomes more sturdy. Inupiaq people didn't do that. And it was a time before they knew about pottery, so, or that type of, firing. So she mentioned in the book that the clay would break really easily, so it wouldn't last, very long. All right. What time is it? It is, how about we take a break? I know we were on since 1. We could take maybe a 5-minute break, and then I'll talk about what's in your package. So are there any questions before we take a break? Okay, hearing no questions, let's go ahead and take a break. I'm going to mute myself. If you do have any questions, I'm near my computer, and you can also use the chat feature. So about 2:30, we'll come back. Tuakhlaq, we were just taking a few-minute break. We're gonna come back at 2:30.
Sounds good. Thank you.
All right. Oops. So in your package, is everybody back? Let me just check. Okay, I see thumbs up. All right, so I know some of you received your packages and some of you have not. But what is in your supply package, we have one soapstone block. So this picture you can see compared to my hand, it's bigger than this, but I think it's like just a little bit bigger. I also added a little Ziploc bag of cotton from the tundra. So you'll get to, when we get to the lighting, you'll have the chance to learn how to light and use the cotton. There's also a variety of carving tools. There's one, some of you got two big carving tools, and then some of you got one. And the reason is because the one that got two, one is like more coarse, and then the other is a little bit fine. And the one that those of you that got one, it's like 2-in-1. 2-in-1 on the same file. And if you're ever like interested in purchasing supplies, like carving supplies, you can check like Home Depot or even Amazon. On Amazon, they come in really nice packages with all sorts of different files. There's also sandpaper that is in order. So there's coarser grit on top. Coarser meaning like it's really like gritty. You can really feel how do you just say it's just more coarse, and then it just kind of gradually changes to more finer grit. And so when you're in your last steps of carving, you will use the sandpaper. There's also a mask. So as you are carving, it is required to use a mask because it's very dusty, and just like any other type of dust, it's not healthy to breathe in. Like ivory dust and other types of, when you're cleaning type of dust, it's the same thing. It's toxic to breathe in. So make sure you use your mask as you are carving. Other supplies that are needed, it's wise to carve over something such as cardboard because, like I said, it's very dusty. So, what if you use a piece of cardboard, then you can just, when you're done carving, you can just dump it into the trash. You will also need a pencil, and we talked about the oil, the utqun, and the Qulliq that you will also need. I also forgot to add on here that you don't need to wear gloves when you're carving, but sometimes when you use these carving tools, you might nick yourself and end up bleeding. So if you feel more comfortable using gloves, you can use gloves just to protect your hands. Let's see what else. Who all has their package? I know those who are in Qulliq Carving have the package. So Anne-Marie, did you get yours? Yeah, okay, so Anne-Marie got hers. Okay, Justina and Juliana got theirs. Kimberly. I know Ethel didn't get hers yet. Rachel and Stephanie, did yours come in the mail yet? Okay, all right, not yet. Okay. So those should be coming in soon. And then I wanted to show this pictures of just how dusty it can get. So I did mention that you can use a saw, like if you, depending on your shape, and there's like a big chunk that you want to cut off, then that's the time when you would use a saw. And it's a coping saw. Let me write that in here. coping saw. And you can purchase it at like Home Depot. And if you're in Qulliq, you're more than welcome to use some of the ones that we have in the classroom. But as you're designing your shape, I would highly recommend that you try to use as much stone as you can, which means you don't have to take off so much of the edges. And I will show here in a second different shapes and what I mean by cutting off the edges. Let's see. So here are some sample shapes. And if you look at this top shape, the half moon shape, well, I guess these two on the left, you would only take off a little bit on the edges, as opposed to if you do like a circular shape, then you would have to take off 4 edges. So I would highly recommend you choose a shape that takes up most of the stone, because the more stone you have, the bigger your Qulliq will be. But it's all up to you. I recommend you, like, please don't make any animal shapes this time, just because it's your first one, and creating animals is more advanced. And yeah, I just want you guys to choose like a basic shape for your first one. And if you ever want to take the class like in the future, then that could be a potential possibility of like doing more advanced shapes like animals. But I wanted to give you guys some time to, if you guys get like a piece of paper and pencil, to just draw on your paper and come up with some kind of a shape that you want. And as you are thinking of your shape, you must also think of your wick ledge. So your wick ledge is like these parts right here, like that will stick up in a part that you're not going to carve. Another thing I wanted to quickly mention as you're designing yours, there's a reason why our people chose to do a straight wick ledge on like one end. And the reason is because the way that it soaks up the oil, like it won't use it as quickly, as opposed to if you do like a curved shape. So like if you did, let me try draw on one of these. I'm just going to duplicate this slide and then draw. Mhm. Oh, wait. I'm just going to use this one. So if you do, let's say, a curved kind of like this, you're going to use a lot more oil. I don't know if you can see it good. Let me fill it in. Okay. So I recommend you try not to do a curved shape, but I know that, the purpose of these little travel ones is not for like, survival where you need it for heat, or you need it on for like 10 hours kind of thing. So if you were in that circumstance where you needed it to be on for survival, then you wouldn't want to use the curved shape. But if you're just using it like to have on for maybe a couple hours here and then maybe you might be open to doing the curved one, but I would highly recommend you not do the curved shape. Are there any questions about the shape, the wick ledge, any of that?
So the wick ledge, is it just going to be like how deep you are carving into it or sanding down into it? The ledge is just higher up, right?
So here's a picture. This is the wick ledge where you see it's like, it's the same height as the edge here. Or oops, sorry, right here, the edge. And then you carve around it, like behind it a little bit on the sides, and then also the bowl in front. So it's just sticking up out so that when you add your cotton, it'll lay right on top out of the oil. And you want this back area right here because when you have your cotton, your oil will come up here and it'll fall back here and then it'll go back into the bowl. So it's the part that sticks up. And then I did draw this black line on these top ones right here because just like in this picture, you also don't want to get too close to the edge because if it's too skinny like the stone, it's going to break. And you want to avoid it breaking. So you want to make sure you make it kind of thick. This part where this picture, like the process that I'm at, the part where I'm carving, I haven't gotten to the sanding part. So you can always make it skinnier with your sandpaper, but if you make it too skinny before you use sandpaper, then you might break it. All right. Any other questions? Okay, so I wanted to give you guys, now that you guys have your paper, pencils, to maybe take like 5 minutes to choose your shape and then choose where you want your wick ledge. And then when we come back in 5 minutes, then you'll share with the class the shape that you chose and just talk about, talk about what you chose. Does that sound good? All right. Okay, so we'll come back in 5 minutes and I'll set my timer now. Yeah. All right, starting now. All right. Does anybody need more time to choose your shape? Or if you need me to go back any of the slides to look at the other shapes? Okay, so I'm guessing everybody's ready. So I'm going to start from the top again, just top down. Kimberly, did you have a question?
No, just waiting.
Okay, all right. Okay, so I'll start, or I guess Kimberly, did you want to start?
Can't tell if can't see myself, so I don't know.
Let me stop share. There.
Oh, I didn't do it very dark. Let me make it darker.
I was able to see the lines. That looked nice.
Oh, okay. You can see that?
Yeah, awesome.
Okay. Thank you. I have a feeling it's easier on paper than it will be on stone.
Yeah, well, you know, it is a really easy stone to carve. So I think you'll be just fine. Like you as you get used to the tools, like all of you get used to the tools and also the sandpaper, it's yeah, you'll see. But I like that you chose that one because you'll only have the two edges that you need to really carve and take off. But if you did want to try using the coping saw, we have some in the classroom. So just let me know, like later on.
Okay.
Awesome, thank you. We'll go to Anne Marie.
I have it rounded, but I like took the corners off the bottom so it wasn't so sharp.
Okay, awesome. That looks good. Yeah, and those two bottom corners will be fairly easy to take off with the hand tools, the hand files. I would recommend that for your wick ledge to move it up just a little bit so that you have some space behind it. So
Okay,
just like maybe just slightly up.
like like where the top is, make it the bottom and
Yes.
go up from here.
Yeah, I think that would be good.
Okay,
Awesome. Thank you, Anne Marie. Okay, we'll go to Justina and Juliana. Oh, you're on mute.
Unmute.
Oh, there you go.
Okay. So we wrote it on our thing. If I'm gonna try to share, could we share our screen?
Yeah, let me give you, okay, there, you can share.
Okay.
Okay, now go out. And then go to notes. Go to the thing.
Where?
This
Oh.
one.
Did you see our screen?
Yep.
Okay, so it's not as pretty as Anne Marie and Kimberly's. But this is the one, the top one is the one I wanted to use. It's not as beautiful, but I wanted to do the one where we're just gonna be shaving off these areas on the corners. But there was one, this is for me, and there was one that you did, and I want to go back to the PowerPoint slide of one earlier that I may want to change once I go back and watch the recording on that PowerPoint, but this is the one that I was leaning towards. And then this would be the wick area for mine.
Okay, yeah, that looks
And then
nice.
Juliana, do you want to share? Oh, It'll look much better though.
I just wanted the oval shape because I don't know, like it looks like a little cereal bowl. It looks the easiest.
Awesome. Yeah, if you needed to use one of the coping saws, just let me know. Or if you wanted to, hand carve it. Either way. The four edges.
Okay. Okay.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing. Okay, let's see. We'll go to Qulliq.
Hello. Can I turn this? So I did this one. Looks like it's probably just going to be nice and simple and easy.
Okay, yeah, just like Anne Marie, I would suggest you move your wick ledge a little bit. So on yours a little bit down, so that when you
Okay.
draw it onto the stone, it won't be too skinny on the back.
Okay. So just a little bit thicker.
Just move like your whole wick ledge, just move it down.
Oh, just down. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, awesome. And then we'll go to Rachel.
Oops. All right. I don't have my stone yet, but I was drawn to the, let me see, can you see it? The half moon shape. I know my wick ledge looks really tiny here, but I kind of wanted, I know it might be a little bit more difficult carving, but I want to kind of make like in the shape of a owl feather. And I had a question on the ledges. Am I able to, is there a reason why I should only have one, or can I do a couple more smaller ones if I want to on the others, like on the edges of the half moon?
Yeah, you can definitely add more ledges. When you get to like sanding it, it might be a little difficult to kind of go around each of the ledges. But I think it might be doable, but just letting you know that it might be hard to sand in that area. I guess when you start like using the files, you can just kind of see once you get used to like carving with the files and then start digging the bowl, then you can maybe if you need to change your design, you can do so. But if you're like okay with you're able to carve in there, then that should be fine.
Oh, thanks.
I love the owl feather idea. That's cool. Awesome. And then we will go to Stephanie.
Yes, the Wicked should be a little farther, but the oval shape.
Okay, yeah. So you caught on. So yes, if you move your wick ledge a little bit towards the center, then it would be perfect. Awesome. So it looks like everybody has a nice shape, and if you decide to change your shape by next week, that's fine. Since everybody doesn't have the stone, we will wait until next week to begin carving. So next week, just make sure you have all of your supplies and have a pencil ready so that you can draw on your stone, draw the shape, just what you did on the paper, and then we'll begin carving. And so as you guys are carving, I'll, just kind of talk and tell some stories and share videos and, things like that. And if you have any questions, so that's kind of what next week will look like. Are there any questions before we log off for the day? All right, well, I'm really excited to be in this class with you all and hope you have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you all next week. Anagaloo.
Guyana.
Anagaloo.
Thank you.
Thank you. It was fun.
Anagaloo.